All right, Martin Popoff here, back for another episode of the Contrarians. This is one of our regular episodes where one of the team picks an album by a band that might not be, the standard favorite of the band, but believes in his heart of hearts that this is the greatest album by this band. And once again, we've got the esteemed Tim Durling here as a guest, and he's going to be talking about Ratt for us. But first, I wanted to ask you, how's it going with Unspooled? What's the story with the book? You've got a Kickstarter going for it?
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, as of this recording, we're 4 days into a month-long campaign, and I've been blown away by the response. We're at almost half of our funding goal. So, nice. Yeah, we're in really, really good shape to hit our target, so then we can, get the book printed and get it mailed out. So thanks to everybody that's pledged. I know I've seen a lot of names come through from you sharing it, Martin, and Marco, and it's been really helpful because I'll look down through the names, and once I get past, my mother and my mother-in-law, lots of families, lots of names I don't recognize.
Good.
So I know that somewhere out there the reach is happening, and it's new territory for me, but it's going really well.
Yeah, and we should say this is a book about the kind of history of 8-tracks. It's beautifully laid out. I've seen the layouts, and it's about collecting 8-tracks, great pictures of 8-tracks, and a lot of the same kind of music that we all love here, because that's the kind of thing you want to collect on 8-tracks. But so much knowledge that I've never seen before. Anybody, if anybody's going to do this and figure out what the heck is going on with 8-tracks, it's you in this book. So you've done a good job. And what else is going on with Tim's Vinyl Confessions?
Well, right now, it's basically all about promoting the book. We're still doing our weekly episodes, but I've got a good one coming up. I've got one coming up on David Lee Roth's solo catalog. I've got a fun Y&T one for later on this year. And it's funny, you met the band we're about to talk about, specifically the book about the 8-tracks, is about the 8-tracks that were produced in the 1980s, the later 1980s, if anybody hasn't read the description. And as a matter of fact, as crazy as this might sound, the band that we're about to talk about today has at least 2. No, I don't have them, and they're highly collectible. The debut EP and Invasion of Your Privacy are confirmed to exist on 8-tracks. So yes, folks, there are Ratt 8-track tapes out there somewhere.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Well, yes. So we are going to be talking about Ratt, and why don't you take it away? What we normally do here is give a brief history of the band, and then just tell us what your favorite Ratt album is, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so Ratt are one of the biggest bands to come out of I call it the Sunset Strip scene in the early 1980s, but I'm pretty sure they were more from the San Diego area, if I've got that correct. They weren't. I think they were one of those imports that came in. They didn't have to go as far as, say, Poison from Pennsylvania, but they did end up in the LA scene, and they played, the same haunts as Van Halen before them, and Motley Crue and Quiet Riot. So the Roxy and the Whiskey A Go Go and Gazzarri's, and so went through a few lineup changes. And the initial version of the band was just simply titled Mickey Ratt. They dropped the Mickey part, which was probably a good idea. Disney probably would have sued. They put another T on Ratt to give it that classic 80s metal hard rock look. Somebody came up with a really cool logo, I might add. I'm not sure who did the logo. Stephen Pearcy on lead vocals. They had a few other iterations. I know that Jakey Lee was an early member of the group, didn't appear on any recordings to my knowledge, but they emerged pretty much on the scene in 1983 with this self-titled EP. I've got a sealed copy here. 6 songs. This was put up by Time Coast Communications, which must be their own company because I've never seen it mentioned in any other context other than Ratt. Was picked up by Atlantic eventually. Of course, the big story with Ratt, 1984, their full-length debut, the one everybody had, was Out of the Cellar. This, of course, had Round and Round, huge song in this genre, went all the way to number 12 on Billboard, still gets tons of play today. It's kind of a timeless song. Great album. This one sold something like 3 million copies. They were poised to be, just major movers and shakers. They never had an album that did as well as that again, but they had consistent platinum albums for the next few. Next one that came out fairly short order. 1985, Invasion of Your Privacy.
Yeah,
this one had the second of their top 40 singles.
Yeah,
which Lay It Down, not as successful as Round and Round. 1986, yet another platinum album, very consistent with the platinums, Dancing Undercover. 1988, the last of their albums to go platinum. I got another sealed copy here. There's Reach for the Sky. Yeah. Then in 1990, they put out an album. Of course, the tide's changing for these bands. They still had a gold album with Detonator from 1990. And, they summed up their career 1991 with a compilation that's still fairly easy to pick up, Ratt and Roll 81-91. Yes, you get a nice signed copy there. Then Stephen Pearcy formed Arcade with Fred Coury, drummer from Cinderella, and they did two albums, two major label albums. Ratt got back together. In 1997, this came out. It's called Collage. A lot of unreleased material, some early Ratt material. Then they signed to John Kolodner's revival of the Portrait label, which a bunch of bands did. This was supposed to be poised to make a lot of these bands famous again. Great White put out an album on this label. Damn Yankees has an unreleased third album to this day, as do Cinderella. I'd like to hear both of those. Ratt managed to put out this self-titled album in 1999. Since then, there hasn't been much
iteration of that on Axe Killer.
That's actually better, I think. That's actually better, I think. That artwork's on the inner sleeve of that, I believe. Yeah. And so far, the only other thing that's come out from Ratt, other than some compilations, in 2010, they kind of reunited because Robin Crosby died in 2002, I believe. Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, did he not die the same day as Lane Staley?
Wow.
Or very close to the same time? Maybe it was announced.
I'll have to look.
Maybe might not have been the same day. Maybe they were announced on the same day, but it was right around the same time. So they got, who would have been a competing guitar player back then, Carlos Gavazzo from Quiet Riot, and they put out this Infestation album. Excellent. That was 2010. So far, this remains the newest Ratt album. Ton of drama, ton of lineup changes. They're one of those bands. I call it the Platters syndrome, like these bands from the 50s where there's like 5 different iterations of them. Well, okay, 2. So that Bobby Blotzer had a version and Stephen Pearcy had a version. They're fighting and they're not fighting. Yeah, tons of drama in Ratt, but
LA Guns, Queensryche, Fleetwood Mac, Deep Purple. they've all had this go on. Yeah. Such and such of this band when they go play live. Yeah, you don't know which version of the band. Yeah, did you mention Yes? Because Yes did that too. Okay, right. Yeah, Alcatraz, sort of. yeah. Like it's crazy. Like I said, I call it the Platters syndrome because it goes all the way back to who am I actually seeing. So my pick for my favorite Ratt album, I don't think this is going to be that much of a stretch, but is 1986's Dancing Undercover, and I got the cassette version here and CD version. The thing about Ratt, and we've talked about this before, Martin, is that they have a pretty safe catalog. And when I say safe catalog, I mean, no matter where you drop down on Ratt, it's going to sound like Ratt. They were a pretty consistent band, through most of their career. They didn't really do anything particularly wrong, but most people, I think, and, the people speak with record sales. With 3 million sold of Out of the Cellar, it's hard to topple that as the best Ratt album. And I think most people would say that's probably the best Ratt album. It's hard to compete when you've got Round and Round on there, but you've also got Wanted Man and Lack of Communication and Back for More. I mean, it is chock full of great songs, but I think Dancing Undercover stands toe-to-toe and might even overstep as being the most consistent Ratt album. It doesn't have any songs that were subject to the play that Round and Round got. Although they had a lot of songs that that mid-charted. But it's just a great album all the way through, and full of potential singles that Atlantic never even got to. And I've always just really enjoyed the album. You can put it on, and none of Ratt's albums are particularly long, but the next thing you know, it's over, and you're like, oh, all right, I guess I'll listen to something else. You're just getting into it. Yeah.
So, Martin, going back, I mean, you would have been actively following the scene when Ratt first, came out. What's the first thing you remember from them?
Well, I definitely got the EP as an indie right away. And I remember getting that kind of around the same time, I think, as Great White's EP and thinking, oh, these bands are doing EPs. That's kind of weird. But yeah, and then right into that first album. And, it's funny. I remember MTV. Well, MTV started in 81. And I remember literally in Nelson, British Columbia, we would go down in the freezing winter and stand in front of a store window and watch MTV through the window after hours at night on a TV that was playing it. We were so blown away by it. But when Ratt comes around, for some reason, my memories of MTV are really about the Ratt videos and the Motley Crue videos. It's not 81 and 82 for me. It's more like 83, 84 kind of thing. So that is a huge memory. And absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. This is a super, super consistent band, and they don't get enough credit for that. I mean, all the records are great. I even love Collage. I play Collage all the time, and this is essentially demos. But when Ratt makes demos, they're amazing, right? So the really cool thing about Ratt is that it's pretty sophisticated. It's like they try really, really, really hard to make a great record, the way sort of Aerosmith is somewhat known for that as well. Although maybe, I would say Aerosmith fails more often than Ratt, because Ratt doesn't fail. Ratt and Infestation's a great album. So let me tell you. So basically, you're right. Out of the Cellar went 3 times platinum. Invasion, 85, went 2 times platinum. Dancing Undercover went platinum. Reach for the Sky went platinum. And Detonator went gold. Man, they had a great run. You really don't think of those records going platinum and gold like that. I mean, you kind of think it's all over, but I think it's just kind of like points to the quality. And you're right about, a little bit of my research in terms of what actually does rate best. Too Loud, Too Old for Music is pretty weird. It rated Detonator 1, then Out of the Cellar, then Infestation, which, again, great album. What an incredible comeback album that was. Dancing Undercover came third. Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Return of Rock rated Invasion of Your Privacy 1, Out of the Cellar 2, then Detonator, then Dancing. Rate Your Music rated Out of the Cellar 1, Invasion 2, Infestation, then the Ratt EP, then the Ratt album, then the Ratt EP. This I think is a tiny bit of a disappointment for me. I remember this is the whole John Kalodner, Great White came out with an album, and Cinderella or somebody else, right? I thought there were 3 that happened all with this. Hey, hair metal's coming back. Yeah. John Kalodner's bringing hair metal back. Maybe there were only 2, but these are actually
the Cinderella one didn't get released. A lot of the songs ended up on Tom Kiefer's first solo album, but it got shelved.
But was there another Columbia? Was there another Columbia signing, or just Ratt and Great White?
No,
Dokken,
sort of. There was a band.
Dokken happened. I think there might have been a Dokken. No,
Dokken were on CMC at that point, but Dokken did put Dysfunctional on Columbia 4 years previous. And
yes, so that's not part of this tranche, as they say.
Yeah, okay. But there was another one, Martin. There was C.C. DeVille had a side band called Samantha 7, and somehow they had an album out on Portrait. And it seems to me that there was one other band that was a new band. But yeah, any of the ones that were supposed to, like I said, Damn Yankee, Cinderella, they all went by the wayside. And I'd have to agree with you. That self-titled Ratt, the 99 one, probably my least favorite. It's a little bit, Ratt's not the type of band that necessarily needs co-writers. I mean, you've got songwriters I love, like Jack Blades. I'm a huge Night Ranger fan. I don't really think that style of songwriting belongs with Ratt. Besides, there's no use. It's no use being too melodic when you've got Stephen Pearcy to sing. Yeah. And I that's not an insult. Stephen Pearcy is a very, very unique singer. He's got that raspy voice. He opens his mouth and it's raspy, but he's not what you'd call a singer's singer, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But for the Ratt material, it's absolutely perfect.
One other thing about Stephen that I think we should say is, despite all the stick he gets for not taking care of his voice and losing his voice and continuing to sing when he can't sing very well, what a songwriter. I mean, he wrote so much stuff. And besides Arcade, he's got all those solo albums. He's done a lot of material. That is a guy that I really respect for that one reason, that he loves writing songs. And so you've got a lead vocalist who is raring to go. He's a little bit like a Steven Tyler again in that respect, that he's kind of the leader of the band. And that sometimes happens with lead vocalists, but this is a guy who just oozes songwriting. He writes and writes and writes, which is a really cool aspect of him. So let me finish up here. So we've got Rancor, which is an aggregator of all this, goes with Out of the Cellar and then Invasion and then Dancing and then Detonator, Reach for the Sky, the 99 self-titled. They put in Infestation last, which isn't really fair. And another way, so I guess you are fairly contrarian in that it seems to be, as it's no surprise to either of us, it's either the debut or Invasion of Your Privacy. That was a huge album as well. In a certain respect, that record was even smoother and more polished, but even heavier in certain ways than the debut. The debut, of course, has a little bit of rawness to it. But the personality's still there. It's like a big stadium rocking album. And, Ratt could do no wrong at that point. They were absolutely world beaters, across those couple of albums. And the videos were really glitzy and glammy, but still, they seemed like guys, right? It wasn't like late hair metal yet. It was just really high quality. It's the reason hair metal was exciting and good was because there were sophisticated riffs and songs being written by bands like Ratt. Ratt was definitely the men's of metal. They were the smart ones among the Twisted Sisters and certainly the Quiet Riots and even Above Dokken to a certain extent. Ratt were the guys kind of weaving sophisticated, cool things through there. You had Bobby with the big drum sound, but he had a few electronic toms in there, which worked fine. Beau Hill is producing up a storm. They're doing really good. But another way that we like to do on Contrarians is I did check kind of the song listings, and really the top 10 songs are essentially all from the first two albums in terms of frequency of live play, but then you do get number 11, Slip of the Lip, number 12 is Body Talk, and then you go all the way down to number 28, so Nothing Else from Dancing Undercover, all the way down to Dance. And like you say, you're right. I mean, there were there were a couple singles tried from this. I think one of them was Dance, and maybe the other one was Body Talk, possibly. But none of these were really big singles. It kind of was a little bit like Ratt's, just like you say, they're doing their thing. It's at a high level, but they are just kind of doing their thing, and they're doing it over and over again. And those guys did fall prey to addictions and partying and fighting and just not, and kind of not caring, but like in Aerosmith, just getting their act together when it came time to make that record. And that's why the records are all pretty good. But I don't know, anything else to add?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Aerosmith, and I totally agree, because you pick up a guitar, as a guitar player, some of these bands, you could pick up the riffs pretty easy. Ratt's riff writing, I don't know if it was Warren or Robert in equal amounts, but intricate guitar parts, interweaving guitar parts, again, very much like Aerosmith. And, you had an episode of your podcast, History in 5 Songs, called, I believe it was called Tortured by EPs. And this, talk about a consistent slab of, I mean, honestly, if this was a full album, this would probably be my favorite. Mm-hmm. This is just 100% good all the way through all 6 tracks. And the Aerosmith connection comes into play here because they do Walking the Dog on here, which is a Rufus Thomas song, but Aerosmith did it on their first album. Ratt do a very faithful rendition. I think it kind of drives home the point. They were really trying to assume that mantle because, let's face it, 1983, Aerosmith were, up against the ropes in a big way. And I know that all of the band members have professed, their love for Aerosmith. And I even think it's subconscious, because if you think about it, Martin, they have a song called Don't Bite the Hand That Feeds. They have a song called No Surprise, Round and Round. Yeah. I don't think it was intentional, but these guys obviously were huge Aerosmith fans. I just love that first EP. And that first EP is one that obviously Atlantic does not own the rights to that, because that is really, really rare. If you want to try to find that on CD now, it doesn't appear on a lot of compilations. You mentioned the gold and platinum certifications. Eventually that Ratt Roll 8191 certified gold as well. Okay. And what a great compilation of songs. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, this is just, this is a driving album right here. You could just put this on and listen to the whole thing. 21 songs on it, I think.
Yeah, I got 19 on the CD.
19. Yeah, 19 songs. Yeah. I was thinking of the Helix over 60 Minutes with, but 19 songs. I mean, just short to the point and a really good cross section. And to this day, I mean, anybody that's never listened to Ratt, I think you can go into a, like a Sunrise Records or somewhere like that and get yourself the Ratt and Roll and Out of the Cellar for a cost not exceeding $10 plus tax. So those two albums are still readily available. But Dancing Undercover, the videos from this album, Dance was the most successful, went to number 58, I believe, on Billboard. Then they had Body Talk, which is a great, heavy, fast one. Odd choice for a single and a video, or there's a video anyway. Oddly enough, when I think of that song, I think the first time I heard that was in the Eddie Murphy movie, The Golden Child, of all things, which most people really don't even remember that movie. And then they did one for Slip of the Lip as well. But One Good Lover, Drive Me Crazy, especially Looking for Love, those all should have been singles and could have been singles. And another thing I like about this album, and even though it's a short album and they didn't need to, there's hardly any space between the tracks. They just bang, 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 one right to another. And next thing you know, the album's done and you're like, wow, that was really good. And I think that the people that rate this album down the list a little bit, they need to listen to this again. It's almost like it's just a good Ratt album, and they never really did a bad one. But I think this one just stands a little bit above as far as getting the songs in your head after you listen to it. You just walk away from it saying, wow, that was really good. One of the funny things is that, and you talked to Beau Hill extensively in your big book of hair metal. Even though Beau Hill produced them from Out of the Cellar all the way up to Reach for the Sky, they fought constantly. They'd hire him and fire him. And, one story where he says he actually made more money by them firing him, because then Atlantic said, no, get him back. So they essentially, I don't know, had to pay him twice or something like that. Yeah. But he ended up crafting a very unique sound for them, especially like you said, Bobby Blotzer on drums. You don't mistake his drum sound for anybody. And it was a sound that worked as far as sounding good on your stereo, sounding good driving around your car. And it sounded good on the radio, too. To this day, if my wife and I are driving around listening to, Sirius or whatever, Round and Round comes on, I think, man, that sounds good. Yeah. It doesn't sound out of place among the songs that, they could be just about anything from that era before or after that was on the pop charts. Round and Round holds its own. But Dancing Undercover has songs that are deserved of that status as being staples in hard rock. Of course, it's never, if it didn't happen, the first time around, it's not going to happen again. And by 1986, a lot of those, I'd say, first tier bands of that era were kind of going by the wayside, because Poison, Cinderella, those bands were starting to emerge. And, Quiet Riot completely bombed at this point. Twisted Sister were on their way out. Motley Crue were kind of the exception to it. I mean, career-wise, they were doing okay. Personally, that's another story. Yeah. But Ratt, again, the consistency is there. They sold a lot of albums and still managed to notch. I mean, this was their, penultimate platinum album. They still did one more album with songs that charted even lower. So this was the first one where they didn't have a song that hit the top 40 because, Round and Round hit number 12. Lay It Down just got there. Was one of those ones that just hit number 40. Okay. Dance did not hit number 40. And then on Reach for the Sky, I think the only one, they had Way Cool Jr., which hit like number 75. Mm-hmm. But they still managed a platinum album. And I mean, you talk about a band that was doing well on the world stage. I mean, think about the groups that opened for them, that got to start opening for Ratt. Bon Jovi opened for Ratt, before they took off. I think they opened for them on the Invasion tour. So, they were right up there. And sadly, I think it's because the guys, even though there was no shortage of drama and abuse and addictions, they didn't have the press that, say, a Motley Crue did. They didn't have the personalities that a Motley Crue did. But what they did have was the respect. I mean, I heard Warren was always featured in the guitar magazines. I don't know so much about Robin, but it seems to be Warren that gets the credit for the solos. Yeah. And I watched an interview with him. I saw it on YouTube with I think from Guitar Player or Guitar World, one of those guitar magazines. And he's very soft-spoken, very shy guy, and very humble, but he comes up with these great riffs. I mean, he's kind of like, I don't know, maybe a quieter George Lynch. You mentioned Doc in there too, but I don't know. I just think Dancing Undercover is a great album. It stands up to repeat listenings. Really, all of the Ratt catalog does. I agree with you on Collage. Collage has great songs on there. Steel River, Rat Madness. It's just good stuff. The self-titled one, the 99 one, is my least favorite, but it's still got some good songs on it. Infestation, they wrote that to sound like it came right after Out of the Cellar, and it does. It's fantastic. I wish that they would do something else, but if there's another Ratt album, who's it going to be? Is it, Stephen Pearcy, Juan Cruce, and whoever? Yeah. These guys need to get over themselves and maybe do one more good album.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I never liked the album cover of Dancing Undercover either. It looks like these dour black and white photos of them that are kind of claustrophobic and obscured, and it's just black and red, and it lacks the glitz of the first two. And I think you want to turn over a Ratt album and see the great picture of the band in all their glory, and not that sort of pensive, and then Reach for the Sky had a bad album cover too. But all right, there we go. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Is Tim right? Is Dancing Undercover the best Ratt album? Or let us know your choices. We also have a Patreon situation. It's really the only way we support this show. And so you could check us out on Patreon. Mark was always doing a lot of cool shows there. So let's leave it at that. Let us know what you think, and go away and listen to some Ratt.
That's it, dude.